So guys, with OpenAI's new model release, GPT-o1, many are wondering how to use it effectively. As you may have guessed, this model stands out because it's designed for reasoning, not like the traditional ChatGPT, meaning it's trained to be incredibly smart and capable of tackling complex problems over multiple steps. However, folks, I guess its advanced capabilities might seem overwhelming. So you might be saying to yourself, this model is only for those who need high-level skills like programming at the 89th percentile or a PhD level, etc., etc. But that's not the case, folks, because there are actually real-world, everyday applications where this model can be surprisingly helpful, and I'm going to show you what those are. Now guys, I want to talk to you about the 5 main categories where this model can make a difference. So stick around because you might be surprised by what it's capable of doing and how 01 could improve some aspects of your life. Hopefully. First up, coding. Basically, this model is a highly skilled coder, and many people don't yet realize how useful this can be in everyday scenarios. And I'm actually sure it even beats Claude 3.5 Sonnet in coding. Or at the very least, there's definitely a fierce competition for the throne. Anyway, folks, take this example. Someone with zero coding skills managed to create a fully functional 3D FPS game in HTML. And this is pretty cool because it took some trial and error, but eventually it totally worked, thanks to just a few prompts, in less than 10 minutes. Basically, what's happening here is that the model provides step-by-step guidance for those without coding experience. And trust me, whether or not you have some coding knowledge, most people miss out on the potential to grasp basic programming concepts and even build their own projects with this tool. Now, you might think, why would I want to code a simple 3D HTML game? It's not like it's a game-changing AAA title that I can sell. And that's a fair point, but the real focus here isn't this specific example, but in the fact that you can use this model to understand coding concepts and build almost anything within reason. Consider this. Ammaar Reshi combined OpenAI and Cursor Composer to create an iOS app in under 10 minutes, and by switching between these tools, he built a fully animated weather app. And this is a significant shift we're talking about, because in the past, building an iOS app required thousands of dollars and a skilled developer, but now, with step-by-step coding and higher accuracy than ever, I think we've truly opened up a new possibility for everyday users and not just the pro hackers. Now, here's where things get even more interesting, because you can see that you can prompt an AI system to help figure out exactly what you need, and even if you don't really understand everything, you can just screenshot your work, ask GPT-4o, and keep getting feedback to guide you through what you're building. It's truly remarkable how this model can assist you every step of the way. But folks, what's crazy here is that this isn't just a coding model, because it's more of a reasoning model, and it's designed to think through complex problems that involve multiple steps. Sure, coding fits into this category, but the potential here is far beyond just programming, because imagine what we could build with future systems like GPT-5, and that's why experimenting with o1 preview right now is worthwhile. And don't worry, because even using GPT-4 gives us a foundational understanding of how AI can be used in coding. I say this because when these models improve, you might already have an app idea or a software concept for your business, and the potential is there to turn it into a lucrative venture. Let's talk about another striking example, folks. Someone used o1 model to build a fully functional chess game, complete with an AI opponent. The implications of this are massive, but we'll get into that a little later. Now I want to show you 2 pretty cool demo clips from OpenAI's official documentation that showcase how they've been applying coding in specific areas.
I want to show an example of a coding prompt that o1 Preview is able to do, but previous models might struggle with. And the coding prompt is to write the code for a very simple video game called Squirrel Finder. And the reason o1 Preview is better at doing prompts like this is when it wants to write a piece of code, it thinks before giving the final answer. So it can use the thinking process to plan out the structure of the code, make sure it fits the constraints, So let's try pasting this in. And to give a brief overview of the prompt, the game Squirrel Finder basically has a koala that you can move using the arrow keys. Strawberries spawn every second and they bounce around, and you want to avoid the strawberries. After 3 seconds, a squirrel icon comes up, and you want to find the squirrel to win. And there are a few other instructions like putting OpenAI in the game screen and displaying instructions before the game starts, etc. So first you can see that the model thought for 21 seconds before giving the final answer. And you can see that during its thinking process, it is gathering details on the game's layout, mapping out the instructions, setting up the screen, etc. And so here's the code that it gave. And I will paste it into a window, and we'll see if it works. So you've seen there's instructions, and let's try to play the game. Oh, the squirrel came very quickly. But, oops, this time I was hit by a strawberry. Let's try again. You can see that the strawberries are appearing, and let's see if I can win by finding the squirrel. Looks like I won.
All right, so the example I'm going to show is writing a code for visualization. So I sometimes teach a class on transformers, which is a technology behind models like ChatGPT. And when you give a sentence to ChatGPT, it has to understand the relationship between the words and so on. So it's a sequence of words, and you just have to model that. And transformers utilize what's called a self-attention to model that. So I always thought, okay, if I can visualize a self-attention mechanism and with some interactive components to it, it will be really great. I just don't have the skills to do that. So let's ask our new model, O1 Preview, to help me out on that. So I just typed in this command and see how the model does. So unlike the previous models like GPT-4o, it will think before outputting an answer. So it started thinking. As it's thinking, let me show you what are some of these requirements. I'm giving a bunch of requirements to think through. So first one is like, use an example sentence, the quick brown fox. And second one is like, when hovering over a token, visualize the edges whose thicknesses are proportional to the attention score. And that means just if the two words are more relevant, then have a thicker edges and so on. So the one common failure in most of the existing models is that when you give a lot of the instructions to follow, it can miss one of them. Just like humans can miss one of them if you give too many of them at once. So because this reasoning model can think very slowly and carefully, it can go through each requirement in depth, and that reduces the chance of missing the instruction. So this output code, let me copy paste this into a terminal. So I'm going to use the editor of 2024. So Vim HTML. So I'm just going to paste this thing into that and just save it out. And on the browser, I'll just try to open this up. And you can see that when I hover over this thing, it shows the arrows, and then quick and brown and so on. And when I hover out of it, it goes away. So that's a correctly rendered version of it. And when I click on it, it shows the attention scores as just as I asked for. And maybe there's like a little bit of rendering, like it's overlapping, but other than that, it's actually much better than what I could have done. Yeah, so this model did really nicely. I think this can be a really useful tool for me to come up with a bunch of different visualization tools for my new teaching sector.
Okay, folks, another profound application is business, and this is one of the most underrated uses of the model. In business, you have to consider various factors before making decisions, and this model excels at weighing up these various factors. I do think this is underutilized because most people aren't business-minded, and I guess many are employees, but if you're considering starting a side hustle, you should know that this model can serve as a solid business advisor. For example, when OpenAI O1 was released, Samir Haddad initially criticized its performance on complex problems, but after using a more detailed prompt, he very quickly changed his opinion. He submitted a complex business problem, a supply chain crisis for a smartphone manufacturer relying on semiconductor chips from a Taiwanese supplier facing challenges, and the prompt included financial impacts, production details, market share, anticipated losses, and so on. The model provided a comprehensive crisis management plan, and it suggested strategies with estimated budgets and insights Haddad hadn't even considered. And this isn't just for established business problems. Think of it in terms of starting out. It can analyze your personal data, so you can ask it, for instance, I'm 32, working in IT with a kid, and I'm trying to start a side hustle. What are the best starting steps? And the model's reasoning can uncover insights you might overlook, drawing comparisons and insights other AIs couldn't miss. At this point, people are really starting to see how smart these models really are, but it's hard to gauge a model's potential if you're only using it for limited tasks. So even if you don't run a business, try experimenting, folks, because it could validate a side hustle or offer advice to help a friend's business, or so much more. Looking at a different angle, the next use is in healthcare, which is a bit of a gray area. If we compare GPT-4o and OpenAI o1 Preview, we can see that o1 Preview performs exceptionally well in medical diagnoses. And for example, while GPT-4o might arrive at an incorrect diagnosis, OpenAI o1 Preview follows an extensive chain of thought and accurately identifies the right syndrome. And this has huge implications for clinical diagnoses since the model can analyze complex phenotypes. Then the model can also assist with personalized health plans, especially for chronic or hidden issues. Now, I know it goes without saying everyone's health situation is unique, and some details might not fit traditional categories. But I figure while a doctor is always the best option for a diagnosis, the model can offer lifestyle suggestions or potential diagnoses that you might not have even considered. For instance, a medical scientist and immunologist mentioned how OpenAI o1 Preview outperforms GPT-4o and GPT-4 in processing medical information and delivering accurate advice. And this performance is remarkable and could help those struggling with misdiagnoses, an issue even in well-developed countries due to human error and overworked medical staff. However, folks, always consult a doctor before making any drastic lifestyle changes. Another pretty cool area where the model shines is legal work. It might not be something everyone needs right now, but it's proven effective for certain tasks. I've used GPT to draft some basic agreements, not anything too complex, and of course, these drafts always need to be reviewed by a lawyer for accuracy. But it's something to consider. There's an article that dives into how OpenAI o1 can be used in legal workflows, and it's titled Spellbook's First Impressions from Implementing o1 Preview into Legal Workflow. And one of the standout points is indeed o1's performance in document revision. Unlike other generative AIs, which often produce entirely new documents, lawyers typically work with existing templates. And, for example, contracts like share purchase agreements can run up to 100 pages, requiring precise revisions, consistency checks, and numerical accuracy. And pretty much this is where traditional models struggle. But o1 brings noticeable improvements. In one case, they used o1 with Spellbook Associate to update a commercial lease, and the results were really impressive. They predicted a surge in nuanced document revision tasks using AI in the coming year. Then the article also touches on legal math. A known issue with GPT-4o was its struggle with numerical content within agreements because, for instance, discrepancies between cap table spreadsheets and deal documents have cost shareholders millions. While tools like Spellbook could flag legal text issues, they missed numerical inaccuracies. Basically, OpenAI o1 enhances reliability in these calculations and improves a more robust solution. I mean, if you're in the legal field, testing these models on your own internal benchmarks might give you some useful insights into their capabilities. Now, let's move on to research, folks. Whether for a PhD or business research, this model is incredibly effective in exploring new areas. For example, one user described a moment when ChatGPT o1 accomplished in just an hour what had taken him nearly a year during his PhD to accomplish. Then, in a video demonstration, he showcased how GPT-01 managed to generate code that mirrored his PhD project's functionality, and while the code used synthetic data and wasn't a perfect replica, it captured the project's essence, handling inputs and outputs, albeit with some caveats. Now, to be fair, guys, the generator code did have its limits. For example, it skipped some manual steps that typically require extra software, like fitting curves and managing edge effects in convolutions. Although some fine-tuning was necessary, the model effectively replicated what the user had spent 10 months working on. I mean, you can't help but acknowledge that is so impressive. Okay, folks, hopefully this video gave you a better idea of how you could use O1. It's a smart tool, and figuring out the right prompts can be daunting, but with some practice, you'll see just how powerful it can be. If you have any thoughts on how others can use this model in everyday life, feel free to share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas, folks. Hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And as always, see you in the next one, folks. You all take care.